First thing, thank you for coming over. This might seem a bit scary, but yet a very important panel. And the reason why I'm saying scary is because when it comes to legalities, and especially in the new financial order, it should have actually been the new world order because the way we are moving ahead in Web3 and crypto, it's basically people who understand is great, but I just want to mention one thing before we begin with our introduction. A lot of builders are very scared of, or rather are, they really want to stay away from compliance because, they kind of don't really, it is a kind of a hindrance for them to build. But compliance is very good because compliance is trying to make sure that the retail investors like yourself, your parents, your friends, who perhaps put in their hard-earned money is being taken care of through a framework. So this is something that I just wanted to bring to your notice, perhaps if there are any builders here. How many of us are builders here? Please raise your hands. How many of us are building or working on a project? Oh, okay. That's great. Uh, I would love to know what you guys are doing, but we'll come back to that in a while. But first, I would like to start from you. Can you please go ahead and introduce yourselves for us so that we can get this panel started?
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my name is Wei Chi. I'm currently with Tokenize Malaysia as CEO. So Tokenize Malaysia is one of the regulated fiat to crypto platform in Malaysia. We're basically a crypto trading platform. But before this, my whole journey started in crypto around 2017, 2018, where I was with a previous company. We were also a crypto trading platform that were regulated by the SEC, that still is. Co-founded that company. Subsequently, I jumped into a different project with a different company where we became the first initial exchange offering platform in Malaysia, regulated by the Securities Commission as well. So the IEO platform allows for businesses in Malaysia, companies to come over to Malaysia, issue digital tokens and fundraise up to 100 million ringgit. Of course, subsequently, after that successful launch, I jumped back into the crypto exchange platform business with Tokenize Malaysia. So my experience roughly is around the regulated space in Malaysia. So happy to take on any questions later.
It's a pleasure to be here. I normally am in Shanghai, where I work at HSBC in the innovation department with HSBC Lab. But really today I'm here on my own, a personal accord, and all my opinions are not related to my employer. I have to put that out there. But my blockchain journey started back in 2013 with Bitcoin. I was always a computer engineer and interested in technology, and came across it from a IoT perspective and looking at different messaging protocols, and thought, well, this is interesting, this is different, what is this? And I've been really passionate on the technology side to see where it's been going over the years, getting into Ethereum, and then ultimately making my way out to mainland China, and now into a global international bank, looking at ways that this type of technology, not just the currency, but even the ledger, can impact what any institution wants to go do. And the compliance and regulation aspects are always an interesting mix, especially in a global setting. So happy to be talking about that from a technologist perspective.
I'm Mike. I'm part of LayerTwo Labs. We recently actually rebranded to LayerTwo Labs, and we're a collection of Bitcoin OGs, developers, and people in business trying to help improve Bitcoin for the better in the long run through the release of our own blockchain towards the end of this year. Personally, I've been in Bitcoin since very early 2011. Started mining Bitcoin when it was $5 because it was very hard to buy Bitcoin back then. And yeah, it's just been in space for a long time, and I've seen lots of ups and downs and ebb and flows, and hopefully my kind of semi-professional insights into the regulatory and legal aspects of crypto can be of interest to the audience. Thanks for having me and my team here.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Lee. I'm representing Crosslight Capital. I'm actually a hedge fund manager. So that's my background. Started my career obviously here in Malaysia and went and spent 17 years in London managing long-short use of leverage funds. Previously worked for the Government of Singapore Investment Corporation before joining a hedge fund in London. Came back to set up Crosslight Capital, so we're, as I mentioned, a Securities Commission Malaysia regulated fund management company, and we've just launched a digital asset fund. So I'm happy to share my views on the project and what we've done here to launch a regulated product. So as you can see, I'm in a shirt and a jacket, so very much not a traditional crypto guy, but entering the crypto space. So very happy to share my perspective and thoughts. Thank you very much.
My name is Albert Cheok. I'm probably the only one overdressed here for obvious reason. I come from a financial background. Basically, I'm an ex-central banker with formerly the Vice Governor, Assistant Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia before becoming the Commissioner of Banking in Hong Kong and the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. And after that, in 1997, I moved across into commercial banking and was running Bangkok Bank in Asia on behalf of the family. But today I'm also wearing the cap of the Deputy Chairman of the Advisory Board to MainChain, that Mike is on. So I guess whilst most of you are trying to learn something about digital and blockchain from the floor, I have to admit I'm trying to learn this very same thing from the stage. As I understand, I'm here to put here basically as the macro guy to see how the legal framework is catching up with the digital technology changes. Over back to you, moderator.
Thank you. So guys, my name is Avali. My full name is Vaibhav Ali, but I'm just taking, learning from all my Chinese friends here. They have a Chinese name and an English name. So my name is, I've just added the V to Ali, so it's Vali. Because if you just call me Ali, and if you, even in Malaysia, I think if you go out and you say, hey Ali, 5 of them might come to you and say, yeah, what do you need? So that's why it's Vali. I am specifically in the space of growth and partnerships. I have the opportunity to travel around the world and to learn from great people like these gentlemen here on the panel. And I'm really looking forward to learn from them. And I'm hoping that even you are going to be a part of this journey. So Albert, my first question to you is going to be, as we navigate an increasingly digital financial landscape, what are the most pressing cybersecurity and data protection challenges that financial institutions face? And how can they legally prepare and mitigate these risks?
Firstly, let me say that cyber security problems and data protection challenges have always been present, right? It's not something new that appeared last night or this morning. And in fact, out there, we still have institutions, financial institutions, still working with legacy systems. As you know, in the recent CrowdStrike failure, we had one of the biggest breakdowns of the global IT infrastructure globally. And that was not even a cybersecurity attack. It was just a failure or failing of a combination of software and hardware on the part of a cybersecurity firm owned by Microsoft. So it's not just a scam. In Malaysia, let me say, we have already introduced introduce laws like the Cybersecurity Act and various personal data protection acts to ensure that companies implement security arrangements to protect customers and their clients. Since we are here at OffChain, I would like to look at this question in the lens of crypto. You don't mind, moderator. For me, it is only a matter of time before digital becomes part of our social life, part of our social fabric, and every Dick, Tom, and Harry, or every aunt and uncle, and their kids and grandkids will be holding and using crypto. We all, including governments, should in time be accepting that the reality that the digital world is here to stay. I will further add by saying that in regards to protection, I believe that prevention is always better than cure. And I'm not even a doctor, but prevention is always better than cure. If financial and other institutions want to stop their customers and clients from being harmed, then the financial and other institutions should ring fence their crypto businesses. Perhaps we might say, why not let's restrict the business to professional customers so that the average Auntie Lee will not be unnecessarily fall into harm. And these professionals, if they want to do those, indulge in those cryptos, get them to sign the forms that they don't know risk they're taking, so they're willing to sign the forms. This way, the institutions can protect the average person from falling victim to those who are looking to scam them of their cryptos. So we need to be watchful for these scammers. Get the cryptos to stay within the boundaries of the financial institutions. Perhaps make it hard for the users to withdraw the cryptos so that they can trade and move those cryptos within the institution that they would like. I think that's the way. So prevention better than cure. We already have, the government have introduced acts, and we must always be on the watch out for scammers. And the best defense is self-governance and self-protection. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like you all to take some time and please pray for Mr. Albert, because he's just recovering from a health issue. So, may you have a very long life, because you are an institution in your own self. I would have liked to ask you more questions about your life and your learning instead of compliance and legalities, but we are here for a specific reason. So that's my question. Jason.
Okay, perhaps I can add some perspective from what Albert's commented. I think this space, it's relatively simple, but not easy. Right? So it's actually quite a simple issue, but it's not easy. From our perspective, we have technology, policies and procedures, which is relatively easy to write up. And then we embark on simulations, hopefully at least once a year, just to test out these policies. And as I mentioned, the starting point, it's relatively simple to sit on stage and say, this is what we do, but it's actually not easy, because you could spend half your year practically simulating almost every cyber security event. But I think the best thing about being regulated here in Malaysia by Securities Commission Malaysia, I'm not sure whether there's anyone in the audience from the SC, but there's a smile here. We do know that they're very vigilant. There's the SC technology vaults, and we get emails sent, and they've got guidelines, which given Albert's experience as a regulator, the regulatory bodies globally have been fantastic in assisting us as a fund management institution to try to address these very challenging issues.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think it's important for, as Albert has said, for financial institutions, if they really want to protect the end consumer, is to figure out through technological means how to ring fence the risk by having maybe crypto integrated at the institutional level, and let those who KYC and are accepting of the risk to participate, but don't let the crypto flow out of the system, so to speak, and have blacklisting, whitelisting, and all those other things implemented so that for your average person, I think, because since we're here at OffChain, right, and I guess the main topic will be the integration of blockchain and crypto. Your average person is looking to invest in the space. That's why they come to crypto. Your average person, why would they need to withdraw it into their own wallet, right? So keep it as custody as possible and as ring fence as possible. And I think that is probably like a good solution for now. That's my 2 cents.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for institutions that are beginning to participate in Web3 to serve as a trusted advisor, to take the right path and try to educate users. I think Albert was mentioning, make them aware of the risks that are present in some of this. But I think there's also a positive side, that this technology can provide solutions to problems that have existed since always in cybersecurity. With the concept of Web3 providing ownership, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to custody your assets at all times. Back with a financial institution or any institution, an assets is loose. It doesn't even mean currency. Those assets could be even identity. I think this is the benefit that Web3 technology can do, is that things like decentralized identity could limit what you're having to necessarily share with a third party or have any custodian. And that could reduce attack exposure to adversaries. It also means that there's less leakage of data and information where they may be selling that information to third parties without any consent or even awareness. So I think the cybersecurity angle needs to be approached by any institution with one as a trusted advisor, and then defense in depth. They can't just simply say, oh, well, we did a smart contract audit, we're good to go here. That's just, minimum table stakes, and I'd say even the smart contract is often not even the case it's being exploited. Defense in depth really should be approached across the entire organization to educate their internal staff of all the different potential scams, to be creating awareness to the external clients, to be ensuring that not just the smart contract, but the entire operational controls of how they're approaching not just the digital asset, but even anything related to the entire servicing. These are things that should have been solved in Web 2, but are now all the more important as an institution gets into Web 3, because the risks are higher. It's no longer necessarily going to be that they have T plus 2 days to sort it out. They may be T plus next block. And I think for the end users, they're becoming aware that there's just, because it's permissionless, especially on public ledgers, any number of scammers can introduce themselves. And it's no longer your script kiddie from down the street trying to attack you. It's an advanced persistent threat nation state that's literally trying to take what you've got. That's a really hard one to guard against. And I think this is where you need to educate the customer, you need to educate your internal staff, and you need to really take your game to a higher level internally across the entire organization.
Thank you. Well, the coincidence is that on the day of the CrowdStrike attack, just a couple of hours earlier, before I was in a SC briefing, Securities Commission Malaysia briefing, regarding a cybersecurity simulation exercise. So, being part of the cybersecurity regime, being part of a regulated regime in any sense, with the SC, there are minimum standards that we have to follow. So for this, again, I would say that generally I'm pro-regulations. So whenever a company, whether it's Web3 or you're talking about legacy fintech companies, at any given time, if you're regulated and because you hold customer funds, you have to meet a certain minimum set of standards, which also includes, annual exercises and all that. So I think relating back to this topic, cybersecurity is something that every company should approach. And of course, different companies of different sizes, you would have different methods of practicing cybersecurity. It's very much like looking after your own personal health, right? You go for your annual checkups. that is what you do on an annual basis, to small things that you do each day, like making sure that you're hydrated, right? So cybersecurity in this sense is a daily approach. If you're regulated, you have to then, at least you have a set of prescription to follow, right? And I think with that, you get to mitigate some of the usual suspects. Of course, we cannot account for 100% that you'll not ever be attacked if you're regulated or you follow the policies, but you should be able to then account for what could possibly happen and reducing the chance of the unexpected events or incidents from happening.
Thank you. I would like to, no, can we start from him again, so it'll be easier, yeah. Since I think 3 of you that I know of come from a traditional space of finance, banking, hedge fund. My first question to you, I'm going off the script, but for you, I'm going to ask you the same questions. I need to know that CZ was convicted for the AML and the KYC fraud. Banking has been doing that for decades, right? They all get slapped a heavy fine, but nobody really goes behind the bars. What's your take on that?
That's very controversial. Well,
the idea is to talk about stuff that people don't want to talk about, right?
Well, first thing, I'm not a regulatory expert of different jurisdictions, right? I think the penalty depends on, of course, where you're based at and how heavy your crime is. But I suppose to give a holistic answer to that, right, is that crypto is new, right? Regulators, enforcers globally have to find a way to curb the downside risk of this asset. And sometimes there's no better way to impose or to make a statement than to impose the heaviest penalty onto someone. That's how I take on it, right? So, well, again, all institutions are susceptible to AML risk and all that. And of course, we have people who have broken the law before. And we often question, like, why are they just fine and all that? So I guess an answer to that is sometimes that could be an accident, or perhaps giving too big of a penalty, a fine towards that company or the person could pose a systemic risk overall to the whole organization, affecting the whole banking structure of that particular community or area, right? As with crypto, there is not much systemic risk yet as of now, right? So it's better to start imposing heavier penalties right now. That's my take on it.
Let me first say that I'm not sure what you say is correct, that nobody has been jailed for offending those things. In fact, without mentioning name, our former Prime Minister is very safely in jail for basically anti-money laundering offenses. Of course, there are many cases, but I'll try to answer this question of yours, moderator, you don't mind, in 2 parts. First, I would like to separate the regulated institutions, which are the traditional one, and perhaps from the so-called crypto unregulated. So for those at the moment, the regulated financial institutions which are operating across individual national jurisdictions, compliance with this anti-money laundering and KYC process is simply part of licensing and regulatory requirements. So when the central bank or the Securities Commission comes to do the audit, whether as part of the external auditing report and the ESG, they take all this into account. So and even when you do a banking transaction, you want to open an account, KFC is the first thing. Individuals perhaps easier, but for institutions these days, in any country in the world, it is very difficult. Try out any one of you. It's very difficult to open a bank account because of the KYC, and more or less they just want to avoid the anti-money laundering. But I have to admit that in relation to cryptos, at the margins, especially when it comes to cryptos, where there are many cryptos are they're actively traded, used, swapped, without the need of this KYC. And so it's basically operating in like what we used to be the wall city in Hong Kong, where no rules apply. So the question often asked is, why would these end users, why would they not want to subject themselves to KYC? I often ask myself a question: if I'm not going to do anything wrong, if I'm not going to be very quiet, or I'm not part of the dark web, what have I got to hide? I mean, I just tell everything that the regulators would like to know or would not like to know. So I think, I don't know, it's a good question for anyone on the floor. Leaving this unregulated margin, this crypto margin out there, may be good, and it may be bad. If I tell you it's good, you might say I'm biased. I'm an ex-regulator. If I tell you it's no good, and it's also not a very good answer. But one view that has most people express is, why not let caveat emptor, let the risk taker decide. Let caveat emptor prevails, and let the professional people be free to take their own risk decisions. But I would like to say that that there must be a balance. If financial institutions do not want to be outcompeted by the likes of Tether and other stable coins, then it must be recognized that the anti-money laundering rules and the KYC rules should not be overbearing. So regulation should not be overbearing, and must provide substantial benefits for end users. I think one way to bring out these people, I don't mind paying a fee to be tested, to show people that I'm eligible to drive. So I'm willing to pay a fee. So maybe the analogy to this is, for those people out there who doesn't want to feel lost, with nameless, not knowing their status, let's give them an interest, or what you call perhaps a yield or premium, and let them come out and be recognized. They want to be recognized. But for those who forever want to hide in the dark, we can't do much about that. I mean, if you want to hide in the dark, you hide in the dark. That's as simple as that. So I don't know what the real answer is for cryptos, but regulated, there are rules. Unregulated, maybe caveat emptor, professionals, and maybe give some incentive for people to undertake the KYC test.
I'd like to jump in. There's one particular thing that I may actually disagree with. I think everything he said was absolutely true, that many have been held accountable for anti-money laundering and such. But while it may be a privilege to drive, I think it's a right to self-custody. This is something that I think is absolutely important within the Web3 world, is that while you may have to seek permission to use public infrastructure like a road and do so safely in accordance with the laws, I personally believe, and it is an ideological one, that self-custody of assets and even how I choose to represent myself is my inherent right. I think that's an interesting view that needs to be expressed. You can now choose what you want to do, and you're using public infrastructure that is decentralized to achieve what you want to do. This has risk, but in many ways that's the same as saying like activity, like risk, like control. We've had cash and other sorts of assets throughout human history that you could self-custody and decide how you want to do it. And while that can create challenges for society, I would equally argue it's created a lot of net positives for society, in that you don't have to seek permission to necessarily conduct what you wish to do with them. That needs balance. I think if everything went to self-custody and everything went to that world, it would be very dystopian. I think there's a lot of efficiencies and benefits to society in finding trustworthy custodians, provided that they follow the regulations, provided that they do the due diligence. And some of this technology, like decentralized identity, can bridge that gap. It can allow custodians to better perform KYC duties, to better perform AML checks on public ledgers that are very transparent as to what's going on. And if there's something that needs to be questioned, it'll actually provide them a lot more data than existing physical forms. I'd also put it back to many regulators to say, your passport is antiquated. It doesn't serve its form for the modern age. As we increasingly live in a purely digital world of electronic money and electronic services, we need electronic identity, and ideally one that I can self-custody and one that I can use globally. Decentralized identity, where I can choose what I want to share, is the right path forward, but most governments haven't quite gotten there, and at best they're talking about a digital identity, which I disagree with. So there's a number of questions that really need to be brought up on what is the role of self-custody in this new age, and not just for cryptocurrency, but for all forms of asset identity and how we express ourselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. Giving people the right to choose is extremely important, and you know, what works for one person may not work for the other, right? Somebody could be very happy to have the crypto be custodied and be taken care of and trust the regulators, trust whatever jurisdiction they're in, and trust if there's insurance, you know, if it's insured, they trust the insurance. But a lot of other people just prefer to, you know, keep their cash under their pillow, so to speak, and keep the crypto in their own holdings, and they'll take the risk for it. So, yeah, the magic of crypto again is if it's done correctly, it's P2P. You know, it's peer-to-peer. So, in that aspect, will have regulators scratching their heads for some time to come, and you know, it's cash for the global world. You know, instantaneous cash. So, is there a right answer? There's probably no right answer, but probably the most optimal answer is to let the end user decide for themselves. I think that's the key. Yep.
Ali, I think the question was CZ going to jail. You know, I'm going to take this from the perspective of history, because as a fund manager, always looking at the past potentially, and it might rhyme. So I've always looked at the industry. I mean, you know, Bitcoin is 20 years old, right? And gold is 4,000 years old. So for me, I actually took the CZ situation as quite positive and definitely pro digital and Bitcoin. And I sort of likened it to online gaming back in the early 2000s, when online gaming was regulated in Europe, but not in the US. And for some reason, the regulatory bodies were allowing de facto online gaming in the US, and then obviously bang, they came in, and you know, the stock prices of many of the European players that expanded into Europe, you know, fell 70-80% essentially overnight. So you know, I think it's very much a human situation. I wouldn't, you know, I think there's been some comments. Is it race related? You know, why allow one entity to be regulated and the other one goes to jail? But I think it's just human nature, and you know, there are people who are developing the whole crypto framework, and it allows new players to come in. So I think this is just a question of chess playing, and definitely positive on that perspective. Obviously not for CZ to being in jail, but you know, I think for the entire industry, this is, you know, very much a welcome development.
I would like just a quick respond to you. I don't necessarily disagree with him. All I'm saying is, as part of the KYC, know your customer, then it might require some crypto people to reveal that they are the holders or whatever it is. It's just that some of these are all numerics, and when you look at it, you don't know what those 42 numbers mean, who's behind it. That's the problem. The problem is not that we don't have the technology to identify and blockchain and thing. All those things are there. It's just that there are some people who purposefully use the technology to hide the identity. And this is what know your customer means. It doesn't mean I'm against technology. If the technology can help me identify you much faster, I will do it. But it's just that if you use the technology to make yourself more hidden, what can I do? So let's not get mistaken that I'm necessarily arguing with Ben. It's just that, you know, he's talking about technology. I agree with that. I can use technology to do my KYC better. But the thing is, those crypto guys can also use the technology to hide themselves better, which is also a problem.
Thank you. I would love y'all to jump in whenever you think you want to make a point. Let's also, you know, make it very interactive. I have a question for you. My question is that Malaysia is one of the first countries to be regulated. And you have been a pioneer. You have been responsible in what the framework looks here today. So if you guys want to thank him or abuse him, he's right here. My question to you is that since it is one of the first countries to be regulated, is that an advantage or disadvantage once the framework is formed, and how flexible the government bodies are to make amendments? Because in the digital asset space, we are learning every day.
Correct. Yeah, so Malaysia is indeed one of the first few countries in the world to regulate crypto and also crypto-related offerings, right? So in Malaysia right now, we have regulated crypto exchanges, we have regulated crypto fundraising platforms, we have regulated crypto custodians, we've got regulated crypto funds too, right? So in my opinion, again, it's not reflective of my company, I think generally, it's all about the underlying objective of the regulation, right? What is the regulation is supposed to achieve for the benefit of society and the community we live in. And I'd say in Malaysia, we do a fairly good job in terms of the regulations to protect investors. Because I've got the privilege to also observe how Malaysia can be a hotbed of unregulated financial schemes, right? And more often than not, people end up losing their fortune in a short span of time within first year, second year. So Malaysians, unfortunately, we are still an emerging economy. Financial investment literacy is not quite there yet. And we're looking this at the society at large, where people are from the outskirts, from the suburban areas. So, you know, in these parts of Malaysia, you know, investment literacy is not there yet. And therefore, we do need certain set of regulations to come in to protect the investors. Is it hard on businesses? Well, yeah, me and my colleagues would agree that yes, it slows us down a little bit. It drives revenue lower in the short term and all this and that. But again, if we look at it holistically, it's done to protect customers. And at the same time, the regulators are constantly open for discussion. So I think slightly net positive effect eventually. Yeah, that's my take.
Ben, what is your take on you know, once a framework is formed, and I'm glad that we are in a country that has been a pioneer in getting the framework. What is your take on that?
I think regulation in crypto is going to have to be an iterative approach. So for any country that's creating frameworks, there's no other technology space that I've seen that moves as fast as digital assets and cryptocurrency and everything that's happening in the space. This isn't just a Malaysia challenge, this is a whole world challenge. And realistically, because it goes cross-border, it ends up being geopolitical in many ways, which makes it even more complicated. I think that we also sometimes get too hung up on the fact that it may have started with Bitcoin and started with a number of investment and financial products, but increasingly the technology can be used for non-financial purposes. This could be governance voting, this could be social media, this will be many, many new applications. As we're hearing, and you'll hear it probably in many other panels, the technology speed of innovation is far outpacing what you can possibly imagine. Bitcoin does 7 transactions per second and really only does Mary sends Bob a Bitcoin. Ethereum does, in the low tens of transactions per second, and while it provides full Turing completeness of any smart contract you want, that's just the tip of the iceberg. As we start to get into new forms of cryptography, we're going to start seeing layer 2s and even other mainnets that come to be that will, not just on a transaction per basis, but I would consider more gas per second basis, provide whole new functionalities that are not currently within the regulatory scope. And that's both good and bad. I think this is the opportunity to say it's really important that the regulators start to create frameworks of what they see happening, but it's not a one and done. It's going to have to be something that they keep coming back with. For any projects that are creating on that bleeding edge, I think it's positive to declare yourself, to actually work with the regulators. That's a hot take from a DeFi Web3 guy, but I would suggest if you want to actually create, onboarding the next billion users, operating in the shadows is perhaps not going to be the best look. I think for a lot of the technology that's going to provide a net positive, working with regulators, working in society, actually is going to be a much better positive. That's controversial, but I think there's an opportunity there to keep building and try some of these technologies and make the controls better so that it provides an actual tangible benefit to society.
Thank you. Michael, since you're the Asia head of LayerTwo Labs, what is something that you would like to say to perhaps the Malaysian legal framework in terms of what they can do better? What better work they can do?
Yeah, I think regulatory framework would help improve things. Would be clearly defined rules for your average citizen, average person living, working, or in Malaysia and otherwise coming to Malaysia. What can they do in crypto? What can they not do in crypto? Can they fundraise for crypto-related projects, blockchain-related projects? How to access the best resources so that they can establish a business in Malaysia to help Malaysia and help Southeast Asia to be more of a hub for crypto and blockchain. I think this sort of quick knowledge and resource is hard to find because it's all scattered everywhere. There's like, is it opinions? Is it fact? Is it rulings? Is it policies? So yeah, I think this would be good if the Malaysian government could just get everything into one clean website or some sort of resource. Yeah.
Thank you. My next question to you, or my last question to you, is that we all have learned, the crypto native folks, like myself and Ben and the other guys here, we all have learned a lot from the traditional space, and we have tried to fit in like a puzzle in the space of Web3 and blockchain and crypto. What is something do you think that the traditional world can learn from the Web3 or the crypto space?
Oh, well, a lot. I think what's happened recently, BlackRock has raised $500 million on their Tokenize money market fund, right? So that's just one example, and clearly a fantastic growing industry. So on your previous question on whether to regulate or not, I think Malaysia has been right to go early, but in fairly moderate levels. So they're not going out crazy. It's a moderate level. For example, we were the first regulated fund manager to invest in Bitcoin for our investors in our unit trust fund. So it's a very traditional structure, unit trust fund. And Malaysia allows this, so up to 15%, 15% of unit trust funds can be invested into crypto. And I think that's amazing. They didn't allow 50% or 100%. It took us actually 2 years to get our digital asset fund up and running. So that allows 100%. But to allow that opportunity to invest in crypto has been fantastic. As well as obviously, if we don't regulate, business goes offshore. Thanks.
I think you want to answer this, the same question.
I'll just
Yeah.
try to end that bit on regulation. I'll just say this basically that you know it's a two-way thing. If you have an unfettered and an unbridled economy or society, the good guys come in with the bad guys, right? And so it's not the good guys that spoil the show, it's that few bad apples in the basket that spoils the show. And why does the regulator, or why do the regulators come in? It's because their concern is not like a teacher. The teacher's concern is not for the top 5% of the class who are genius, know the maths, know the physics, know the English. It's trying to get the bottom 20% to catch up, to get to the average. So that's where we need to understand and not get overexcited about over-regulation. The question is, what is the balance of regulation? I'm for regulation for the reason is basically, as I say, if technology is good, I think there seems to be a suggestion or a hint here that I'm somehow anti-technology and all. I'm clearly not so, because if you don't have regulation, right, you might have more frightened people out there, and then you might have more people avoiding trying to adopt new technology. So what Malaysia is doing, gently, right, doing sandboxing and grading them, graduating in, that way is perhaps the fastest way to get the digital technology going, get more and more people into the digital space. Whereas if you don't have any regulation, people get frightened and say, hey, there's a hantu there, there's a ghost there, let's not walk into there. Then nothing moves. There's no progress at all. So I believe as long as the regulation makes sense, people understand why it's there, it's not overbearing to the users, then these regulations have some definite advantage. Of course, cryptos will thrive with or without regulation. The regulation might as well be, in my view, be balanced, be as light as possible, so at least the public knows that, okay, great, there's a framework here in Malaysia that regulates crypto, and there are things that I can do and that I cannot do, and that gives me some sense of comfort, some sense of willingness to take risks, to do something, right? And so I said, in the end, it gives the end user some confidence. So let's look at the other side of the glass and try to show that Malaysia we are proactive, but proactive in a very gentle, graduated way. We will get ourselves up to speed as more and more as the population become more educated, right? And so I'm for regulation as long as it's balanced and not too heavy. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been told that the time is over, but I'm just going to take another moment and ask Mr. Albert one question, and my last question. This might be a bit personal. You can say no to me, but since listening to your experience and with your age, I did mention that you are an institution on your own. I would love to know a mistake that you have made in your life, a mistake that you have made in your life. It could be personal, it could be work, it could be anything, that perhaps you don't want us to make that mistake in the audience or in the panel, and that we can learn from that mistake. It can be work, it can be personal, it could be maybe not pursuing your ex-girlfriend, anything that we would like to just learn from you.
That's a very good question. Not easy to answer, and I guess one can look back with regrets and say I've made a mistake here or I've made a mistake there. But the end of the day...
I hope you're not going to be diplomatic about this answer.
No, I will not be diplomatic. I got awarded a PhD scholarship in economics at the Queen's College in Cambridge, right? And anybody would cut off a leg and a limb to get a scholarship, right? And I declined. I declined the scholarship, and I went on and worked in the central bank and the treasury. And then the other thing which one might say is a mistake, by the time I was 41, 42, I was already the assistant governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia, not Bank Negara, by the way, Reserve Bank of Australia. And I was told, you're in a bloody good position, mind. At 42, the retirement age is 65. Every day you come to work, you just sign 2 signatures. Most of the things are prepared for you in memo, prepared by 12 layers. No English, no punctuation mistakes and all that sort of thing. So there must be a jolly good life. And I went and prayed and said, no. Go and make a mistake. Give up your scholarship in Cambridge. Get out of the Reserve Bank. Right? I went out and I joined the Bangkok Bank, which is a commercial bank. And voila, to my surprise, I found out that I learned more things out in the open space. I learned more things in the streets than all the sacred, secluded cloisters of the Reserve Bank or of the universities. The reason is I was the chairman of the loan committee, and every time someone comes to make a loan, I'll say, look, excuse me, I'm a central banker. I don't know anything about any industry. Can you please start from scratch? Tell me what your real estate development is, what running a supermarket is, what running a glove factory is. So right from the start, pretend I'm 3 years old, right? And in the process, I realized that, in that five-year period, I know more about more industries than most people that I know, because I pretended to be stupid and they gave me all the answers. And then I went to a social function and I met this good friend of mine who I've not seen for 25 years. He said, look, how you mind? He said, financially I'm doing well. I said, I'm now head of the gynecological unit in the hospital. They pay me well. I said, that must make you very happy. He said, Albert, I will swap places with you for $10 million. I said, why do that? You got a good marriage, everything else. He said, you don't know the bloody hell I've gone through. I spent the last 40 years looking at the front of a female's anatomy. And you know how boring it is looking at a lobang for the rest of your life, So I say I made mistakes, but I have no regrets. I did it my way. Thank you.
Now that's a mic drop moment there. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for our panels out here. We had Albert. Please clap out loud. Make some noise for them. Everyone, keep that round of applause going. We had Albert, we had Jason, we had Michael, we had Ben, and we had Wei. Come on, everybody, give it up for them.